In the mysterious realm of organized crime, legends echo through the ages. Curiosity surrounds the enigmatic fate of the first mobster to shatter the impenetrable code known as the Omertà. Whispers of power, deceit, and treachery intertwine with the lingering question, what truly happened when this audacious figure dared to defy the unspoken oath of silence? In this video, we'll unravel the tale of the ill-fated mobster who first broke the horrifying Omertà. Who was Joseph Velachi? In the murky depths of New York City's underworld, one man rose from the shadows, forever altering the course of organized crime. Born into poverty on September 22, 1904, in the gritty streets of East Harlem, Joseph Michael Velachi's early life seemed destined for hardship. His father, a violent alcoholic, cast a dark cloud over his upbringing, leading Velachi down a treacherous path. Little did he know that this path would ultimately lead him to become the first mobster to break the infamous code of silence, the Omertà. Velachi's journey took a fateful turn when he found himself entangled with the Genovese crime family, one of the most formidable forces in the Italian-American Mafia. He swiftly climbed the ranks, making a name for himself in the criminal underworld. But it was a conviction for drug trafficking in 1959 that would set in motion a series of events that would forever seal Velachi's place in history. While serving his sentence, Velachi found himself behind bars with none other than Vito Genovese, the ruthless boss of the crime family. Paranoia consumed Velachi, convinced that Genovese had sent a hitman to silence him. In a shocking act of self-preservation, he committed murder within the prison walls, and the consequences were dire. Sentenced to life imprisonment, Velachi faced a future confined within the cold, unforgiving walls of his cell. Yet fate had a different plan in store for Velachi. In a twist of destiny, he transformed from a hardened criminal to a government witness, ready to expose the secrets of the elusive Italian-American Mafia. In 1963, Velachi shattered the barriers of silence, stepping onto the public stage to disclose the inner workings of the secretive organization. His gripping testimony before a U.S. Senate committee, known as the Velachi hearings, unveiled a hidden world of rituals, operations, and membership. Velachi's revelations shook the foundations of organized crime, providing federal authorities and the general public with their first concrete evidence of the Italian-American Mafia's existence. The Mafia. The roots of the term mafia can be traced back to Sicily, where the adjective mafioso embodied fearlessness, enterprise, and pride. The swagger of these individuals echoed through the narrow streets, captivating the imagination of scholars and criminals alike. A dichotomy of danger and allure was inherent in this Sicilian origin. Crossing the Atlantic, the Italian-American Mafia found fertile ground in America, known by many names: Italian-American Mafia, the Mob, or simply Cosa Nostra. This highly organized criminal group took shape within impoverished Italian immigrant neighborhoods, its influence spreading like a virus. New York's East Harlem, the Lower East Side, and Brooklyn served as its cradle, but its reach extended far beyond these boundaries. While the origins of the American Mafia lay in the Sicilian Mafia, it gradually forged its own identity, distinct from its European predecessor. Campanian, Calabrian, and other Italian criminal groups in the United States merged with Sicilian mafiosi, creating a pan-Italian mafia that transcended regional boundaries. Bound by shared interests, this criminal empire sprawled across the nation, engaging in a wide range of illegal activities. At the heart of the American Mafia lies the concept of the family, although these units are not necessarily linked by blood ties. Each criminal organization operates independently, dominating its assigned territories. Yet there is a remarkable level of coordination, overseen by the Commission, an assembly of the most powerful family bosses. Together, they dictate the course of organized crime in the nation. The Mafia's influence is felt most strongly in the northeastern United States, where it holds sway in major cities like New York, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. Its presence stretches across the country, from the Midwestern metropolises of Chicago, Detroit, and Kansas City to the sun-soaked shores of Florida and the glitz of Las Vegas. While some families may have faded over time, their descendants continue to engage in criminal operations, while consolidation has led to the dominance of powerful crime families in neighboring cities. Immersed in a world governed by unwritten codes and bound by a strict hierarchy, the American Mafia maintains an enduring grip on organized crime. Its notorious five families, the Gambino, Lucchese, Genovese, Bonanno, and Colombo, carved out their territories, their influence extending far beyond city limits. This highly organized criminal society orchestrates a symphony of illicit activities, navigating a dangerous landscape where power, wealth, and violence intertwine. During Velachi's time in the Mafia, he was affiliated with the Genovese family, known as the West Side, and standing as one of the legendary five families of the American Mafia. This syndicate has left an indelible mark on the criminal landscape. Rooted in the visionary mind of Charles Charles "Lucky" Luciano, the family emerged in 1931 as the Luciano crime family, later adopting the name of its formidable boss, Vito Genovese. Their empire encompassed the bustling waterfront of Manhattan's West Side, commanding control over the docks and the legendary Fulton Fish Market. But it was the enigmatic figure of Vincent the Chin Gigante who truly left an imprint on the family's legacy. Known as the Oddfather, Gigante orchestrated a masterful charade of feigned insanity. Meandering through Greenwich Village clad in a tattered bathrobe and sporting an unkempt beard, he muttered incoherently, a brilliant act to evade the clutches of the law. Behind the facade, the Genovese family thrived, manipulating the criminal landscape to their advantage. As the oldest and largest of the 5 families, the Genovese syndicate has continuously adapted to the changing times. Embracing the opportunities presented by the 21st century, they ventured into mortgage fraud during the housing bubble, capitalizing on lax bank oversight. Exploiting the emerging realm of technology, they revolutionized illegal gambling, facilitating bets through offshore websites and the vast expanse of the internet. Intriguingly, while the Genovese family seemed to be in flux following Gigante's demise in 2005, they have solidified their position as the most organized and powerful family in the United States. Whispers in the underworld point to Liborio Barney Bellomo as the current boss, leading with a shroud of secrecy and adhering strictly to the code of Omertà, the Mafia's code of silence and non-cooperation with law enforcement. Unlike their counterparts who have succumbed to the pressure of informants and turned against their families, the Genovese family has remained steadfast. This unwavering loyalty has bolstered the family's reputation, establishing them as a force to be reckoned with. Velachi and the criminal underworld. A gang known as the Minutemen specialized in smash-and-grab burglaries, executing their heists with such precision and speed that they earned their moniker. At the wheel of their daring escapades was Joseph Velachi, a rising star in the city's criminal underworld. Velachi's reputation grew alongside his ability to make a quick getaway. With a knack for evading capture, he became a prized asset within the Minutemen, but fate had other plans for him. In 1921, he found himself arrested on grand larceny charges, and 2 years later he faced the consequences of a botched robbery. Pleading guilty to attempted burglary, Velachi was sentenced to a term at the infamous Sing Sing prison. However, luck was on his side as he was released after serving just half of his sentence. Upon his return to the streets, Velachi discovered that he had been replaced as the Minutemen's driver. Undeterred, he set out to form his own burglary gang, determined to carve his path in the criminal underworld. Little did he know that his journey was about to take an even more intriguing turn. In the American and Sicilian Mafia, being a made man is the ultimate honor, a status reserved for those fully initiated into the clandestine world of organized crime. To achieve this coveted title, one must be of Italian descent and earn the sponsorship of a current made man. Initiation involves taking the sacred oath of Omertà, swearing to uphold the code of silence and honor that define the Mafia. Once an associate becomes a made man, their rank within the Mafia hierarchy rises to that of a soldier. This distinction sets them apart from mere associates, granting them the opportunity to ascend through the ranks from soldier to caporegime, consigliere, underboss, and in some cases even boss. While terms like man of honor, man of respect, and friend of ours are common in referring to Mafia members, they can also apply to close associates who work closely with the organization but are not officially initiated. The path to becoming a made man is often colloquially referred to as earning one's bones or getting one's button, signifying the ultimate seal of approval within the Mafia. 1930 was a pivotal moment in Velachi's criminal career. He stood before a select few, ready to take the oath that would forever bind him to the American Mafia. The Reina family, later known as the Lucchese family, welcomed Velachi into their ranks as a soldado, a soldier. Led by Gaetano Reina, this family found itself embroiled in the Castellamarese War, a violent struggle for control within Italian organized crime in the United States. Velachi fought alongside the Reina family, aligning himself with the faction led by Salvatore Maranzano against the forces of Joe Masseria. Blood was shed, allegiances shifted, and power hung in the balance. The war reached its climax when Masseria met his demise on that fateful day in April 1931. Victorious, Maranzano declared himself Capo di tutti I capi, which means the boss of all bosses. And Velachi, loyal to the core, became one of his trusted bodyguards. But as fate would have it, Maranzano's reign was short-lived. The tides of power shifted once again when Charles "Lucky" Luciano orchestrated Maranzano's assassination just 5 months later. Velachi, ever adaptable, swiftly aligned himself with Luciano's faction protection, finding a new home in the Genovese family led by Vito Genovese. Under the wing of Anthony Tony Bender Strollo, Velachi embraced his role as a soldier once more. However, the underworld is a volatile place where allegiances can crumble and betrayals lurk in the shadows. In 1953, Genovese, Velachi's boss, allegedly ordered the murder of mobster Stephen France. Tasked with carrying out the grim deed, Velachi found himself entangled in a web of treachery. He lured France to his Bronx restaurant, where he met a tragic end at the hands of Pasquale Pagano and Fioriciano, Velachi's nephew. The tumultuous world of crime took its toll on Velachi. In 1959, he was convicted of narcotics violations and sentenced to a 15-year prison term. Behind bars, Velachi's motivations began to shift. Some speculated that he aimed to expose the powerful criminal organization that had marred his life. Others suggested he sought government protection through a plea bargain, hoping to escape the death penalty for a murder he committed while imprisoned for his narcotics crimes. Velachi's time in prison was not without its own horrors. Fearing that Genovese had ordered his execution, Velachi took matters into his own hands. In a shocking act of violence, he bludgeoned an inmate to death, mistaking him for a Mafia member contracted to kill him. Paranoia consumed him, fueled by the lingering threat of a $100,000 bounty on his head, courtesy of Genovese himself. The Velachi hearings. When Velachi made the bold decision to cooperate with the U.S. Justice Department, he found an unlikely protector in attorney William G. Hundley. Disguised with dark glasses and wigs, Velachi was whisked away to secret meetings at the Roma restaurant. Hundley, who had been skeptical of the Mafia's mystique, later confessed, "My days with Velachi convinced me that the Cosa Nostra was the most overrated thing since the Communist Party." Little did he know that the revelations Velachi was about to unleash would rock the nation. In a historic moment in October 1963, Velachi took the stand before Senator John L. McClellan's Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. It was the Velachi hearings, a gripping trial that exposed the dark underbelly of organized crime in the United States. Velachi's testimony not only confirmed the reality of the Mafia, but also popularized the term Cosa Nostra, the name by which the organization would forever be known. His courageous act of breaking the blood oath sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld, leaving no doubt that the Mafia's reign of secrecy was crumbling. During the Velachi hearings, the true scope of American organized crime was laid bare. The veil was lifted on the notorious five families and their intricate hierarchy, revealing the inner workings of the Mafia and its powerful governing body, the Commission. At the heart of the investigation was the insidious role of organized crime in heroin trafficking, a nefarious web that stretched from the opium poppy fields of the Middle East to the devastating addiction gripping American communities. Senator McClellan understood the urgent need to confront this issue head-on, stating that the hearings aimed to provide vital information for legislative action and raise awareness among citizens, urging them to join forces with law enforcement agencies in the fight against organized crime. The first witness to take the stand was Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, a man well-versed in the inner workings of criminal syndicates. He outlined the Department of Justice's efforts to curb the vast misconduct that generated billions of dollars in illicit profits. Kennedy acknowledged the crucial role played by federal interstate gambling laws, enacted after a previous congressional investigation into organized crime, which had paved the way for significant law enforcement successes. However, he stressed the need for further legislation, including wiretaps in racketeering cases and granting immunity to key witnesses to dismantle these criminal networks more effectively. Kennedy underscored the significance of Joseph Velachi's forthcoming testimony, emphasizing that this marked the first time an insider, a knowledgeable member of the racketeering hierarchy, had dared to break the underworld's code of silence. The Attorney General shed light on the violent repercussions of Cosa Nostra's narcotics trade, recounting chilling instances of murder, suicide, and ruthless acts of intimidation that accompanied their criminal operations. He also revealed the insidious practice of extortionate cash loans, a tactic employed by these cartels to control legitimate businesses and exert their dominance through fear and violence. Following Kennedy's testimony, the stage was set for New York City's top law enforcement officials to share their experiences combating organized crime. Police Commissioner Michael J. Murphy and Deputy Commissioner Leonard Reisman provided a glimpse into the relentless battle against the crime syndicates. Despite their successes in dismantling various criminal enterprises, the syndicates continually adapted, developing sophisticated gambling methods and expanding their revenue streams, particularly through the distribution of narcotics. John J. Shanley, head of the Central Investigation Bureau of the NYC Police Department, delved into the challenging task of collecting intelligence on the Cosa Nostra bosses. Their cunning strategies and meticulous efforts to distance distanced themselves from criminal activities, made it an arduous endeavor to hold them accountable. Yet, Shanley's testimony highlighted the determination of law enforcement agencies to unravel the intricate web of organized crime and bring these ruthless criminals to justice. Guarded by a battalion of 200 U.S. Marshals, Velachi arrived at the Capitol building, a living symbol of the grave importance placed on his testimony. With rumors swirling that a hefty price had been placed on his head, Velachi became the first person in the history of the U.S. to be given government protection in exchange for his damning revelation, and reveal he did. In an electrifying display of courage, Velachi meticulously unraveled the intricate organization and structure of the 5 notorious New York crime families. With the aid of law enforcement, he crafted detailed charts that unveiled the names, faces, and interconnections of the criminal hierarchy, stunning the nation with the sheer scope of the problem. The Genovese family alone, with its tangled web of criminal enterprises, encompassed a staggering 142 individuals. But Velachi's testimony was not just a dry recitation of names and titles. It was a chilling expose of a life steeped in violence and fear. He disclosed the crimes he had committed, crimes that had propelled him into the dark underbelly of the Mafia. As Senator McClellan probed Velachi about why he hadn't simply walked away from the organization, his response was bone-chilling. Once you're in, you can't get out. They will hunt you. The merciless grip of the Mafia was inescapable, and Velachi knew that his only hope for survival lay in cooperation with law enforcement. Over several gripping days, Velachi bared the secrets of the crime families, peeling back the layers of their initiation ceremonies, their code of silence, their blood-soaked history of murders, and their lucrative drug trafficking operations. He spoke of his recruitment into the underworld during a tumultuous gangland war, recounting the rise of bosses, the shifting loyalties, and the shadowy revenge plots that unfolded behind closed doors. Velachi's testimony transformed him into the face of the American gangster, captivating the nation and thrusting the problem of organized crime into the forefront of public consciousness. But Velachi's words did not stand alone. Other witnesses stepped forward to corroborate his shocking revelations. The New York Police Department confirmed the consistency of Velachi's accounts, while police chiefs from Detroit, Chicago, Tampa, and Buffalo shared their own harrowing experiences with the insidious reach of organized crime. Their collective testimonies painted a bleak picture of a criminal empire that extended its grasp into every facet of American life, from illegal narcotics and prostitution to gambling and political bribery. As Velachi's revelations unfolded through televised broadcasts, the nation was transfixed. The underworld, once shrouded in shadows, now stood exposed for all to see. Aftermath. The Velachi hearings were part of a comprehensive investigation into the deep-rooted issues plaguing the United States: narcotics addiction, treatment, and rehabilitation. The Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, or PSI, left no stone unturned, collecting testimony from esteemed institutions and experts such as the American Medical Association and Wayne State University. The facts they presented were damning. The federal government had only 2 hospitals offering treatment for drug addicts, and there was a severe lack of follow-up care and support systems across the country for those trying to break free from addiction. On March 4, 1965, the PSI released a bipartisan report, a document that would send shockwaves through the nation. In its 135 pages, the report laid bare the grim reality of organized crime and the illicit narcotics trade. It called for legislative action, proposing a range of measures to combat the nefarious activities of criminal syndicates. The recommendations were ambitious and far-reaching, including provisions for immunity in exchange for testimony, revised wiretap statutes, criminalization of witness intimidation, civil commitment for narcotics addicts, and collaborative efforts to stem the flow of illegal drugs from Mexico. Remarkably, many of these recommendations found their way into law. The Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968, signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson, introduced measures such as wiretap warrants and stricter regulations on firearms, raising the minimum age for handgun purchases to 21. The Gun Control Act of 1968 further regulated the interstate trade of firearms through the establishment of the Federal Firearms License System. Then, in 1970, President Richard Nixon signed the Organized Crime Control Act, which included the groundbreaking Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations (RICO) Act. This act allowed for severe penalties and separate convictions for both underlying crimes and racketeering offenses, listing 35 crimes as racketeering activities. The fight against organized crime did not end there. The Velachi hearings spurred executive branch measures, criminals, with Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy leading the charge. Field offices of the Federal Organized Crime Strike Force were established, the number of attorneys in the Justice Department's Organized Crime and Racketeering section was increased, and wiretap surveillance and immunity grants became crucial tools in obtaining incriminating testimony. Velachi's personal account, known as The Real Thing, became a wellspring of inspiration for Mario Puzo's iconic novel, The Godfather. In the wake of President Kennedy's assassination, a new battle emerged, one that sought to dismantle the powerful grip of organized crime on American soil. The Velachi hearings may have been overshadowed by this tragic event, but their impact would reverberate through the corridors of power for years to come. Robert Kennedy, the Attorney General of the United States, was the driving force behind the government's war on the Mafia, but his position was weakened with his brother's assassination. However, the United States Congress responded to Joseph Velachi's shocking revelations by passing two landmark laws that bolstered federal racketeering and gambling statutes. These measures were designed to aid the Federal Bureau of Investigation, popularly known as the FBI, in its relentless fight against the insidious influence of the mob. The Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968 was a watershed moment in law enforcement history. It granted the use of court-ordered electronic surveillance, enabling authorities to penetrate the clandestine activities of criminals involved in specific offenses. This marked a significant shift in tactics, equipping the FBI with powerful tools to combat organized crime. The Racketeer-Influenced and Corrupt Organizations (RICO) statute of 1970 would pave the way for the FBI to build strong cases against the leaders of traditional crime families, resulting in a wave of high-profile convictions in the 1980s. Velachi's contribution extended beyond the hearings themselves. Urged by the U.S. Department of Justice, he penned a sprawling manuscript chronicling his 30-year criminal career. The manuscript, titled The Real Thing, was intended to shed light on the underworld and aid law enforcement efforts. However, its release faced staunch opposition, with the American-Italian Anti-Defamation League arguing that it would perpetuate negative ethnic stereotypes. Despite initial plans to publish Velachi's memoir, Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach reversed course after a meeting with President Lyndon B. Johnson. The decision caused embarrassment for the Justice Department, but it didn't silence Velachi's story. Author Peter Maas, who had broken Velachi's tale in the Saturday Evening Post, published a third-person account based on his interviews with the notorious informant. This account formed the basis of the book, The Velachi Papers, which hit shelves in 1968. After Velachi's testimony, the once impenetrable wall of Omertà began to crumble. Mobsters, facing the prospect of prison time, sought ways to save themselves. In a remarkable twist, former allies turned on each other, seeking reduced sentences in exchange for their damning testimony. One such example was Sammy the Bull Gravano, an underboss who bravely exposed the dark secrets of his boss, John Gotti, revealing a string of cold-blooded murders. Velachi's life after. The first willing witness to expose the dark underbelly of a deadly criminal organization, found himself in a precarious position. In exchange for his groundbreaking testimony, the federal government granted him a unique privilege, but it came at a cost. No longer restricted to the confines of a regular prison cell, Velachi was granted a luxurious air-conditioned suite in El Paso, Texas. It was a space that once housed inmates awaiting the electric chair, a chilling reminder of the danger he had faced. However, the comforts he received could not mend the wounds of his past. The weight of his revelations, the burden of his cooperation, took its toll. Velachi was deeply troubled by the troubles and mistakes of his past. He felt overwhelmed by his emotions and thoughts, and at one point he even tried to end his own life. Velachi passed away in prison on April 3, 1971, succumbing to a heart attack. He was laid to rest 4 days later at the Gate of Heaven Cemetery in Lewiston, New York. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of bravery and fear, click a card on your screen to watch similar videos.